My name is Emily Carter. And the day I discovered my husband was lying to me, I wasn't standing in our kitchen. I wasn't checking his phone. I wasn't following him. I was lying in a hospital bed, 36 weeks pregnant, watching the local news. My blood pressure had risen high enough that my doctor wanted to keep me under observation. Daniel had kissed my forehead before leaving that morning. I have a meeting with an important client, he'd said. I'll be back tonight. I believed him. I'd been married to Daniel for 6 years. I knew his voice. I knew his habits. I even knew the little pause he made whenever something was bothering him. So when he told me he was going to work, I had no reason to question him. Until the television showed me where he really was. The news anchor was covering a luxury cruise leaving Port Miami. The camera swept across the boarding deck. And then I saw someone I knew. My father, Richard Carter. Then my mother, Margaret. Then my younger sister, Jessica. And finally, Daniel, my husband. He was standing beside my father, wearing the white linen shirt I'd ironed for him 2 nights earlier. He had a champagne glass in his hand, and he was laughing. Not smiling, laughing the kind of laugh you have when you have absolutely nothing to worry about. I stared at the television. The reporter described the trip as a private business retreat. Then the camera moved on. The segment ended. I reached for my phone. There was an old credit card notification I'd ignored 6 days earlier. I opened it. Cruise travel $3,750. The charge was on my personal credit card, the card Daniel had access to. I called him. He answered on the second ring. Hey, babe, where are you? There was a pause. Tiny, barely noticeable, but I heard it. At the office, he said. I looked at the television. Then, back at my phone. Okay, I said. Have a good meeting. I hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call my father. I didn't call my mother. I just stared at the ceiling. And for the first time, I admitted something I'd been trying not to believe. The man I trusted most had just lied to me without hesitation. And that $3,750 charge? It was about to become the smallest problem in my life. Because I'm a CPA, and when something doesn't add up, I can't simply ignore it. It's what I do. I find the missing number. I find the unusual transaction. I find the thing everyone else overlooked. That afternoon, I opened my laptop. I started with Daniel's access to our joint checking account. At first, everything looked normal. The mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance, car payments. Then, I noticed a transfer. $12,000. 6 months earlier. The description read, CC Holdings Advance. I searched for another, $8,500, same description. Then, $15,000, and then, $9,700. I pulled 18 months of statements. There were 11 transfers in total. The amount came to $47,200. $47,200. Transferred out of our household account. And I had never heard of CC Holdings. I searched my father's company records. Nothing, no vendor, no subsidiary, no employee, no contract, nothing. That was the first moment I felt something colder than anger. Suspicion, because Daniel's lie about the cruise could have been personal. But money was different. Money left a trail. And trails lead somewhere. My father owned Carter Marine Group, a family business he'd built over nearly 3 decades. The company specialized in private yacht charters, corporate events, and luxury marine services along the Florida coast. I'd worked with him since I was 19, not officially at first. I helped with bookkeeping during college. Then payroll. Then financial reporting. Then tax preparation. Eventually, I became the person my father trusted to review the company's annual numbers. For years, he'd told me the same thing. You're the only person in this family I trust with the real numbers. I used to be proud of that. Now I wondered if he'd been telling me something else. For the next 2 nights, I went through old company records. I knew exactly where the files were stored. My father had never expected me to question them. Why would he? I was his daughter. I was family. And in my father's world, family was supposed to trust first and ask questions later. Around 2 a.m, I found a folder I'd never seen before. It was buried inside an old archive. The folder was labeled Special Events. Inside was another folder, Harbor Accounts. I opened it, and everything changed. The official company records showed modest revenue from private events, but the harbor accounts contained hundreds of private bookings that weren't appearing in the main books: weddings, corporate retreats, fishing charters, private dinners, weekend yacht rentals, sunset cruises. I started adding the numbers, then I checked them again. And again. The total came to approximately $940,000. $940,000. Unreported revenue. I stared at the screen. My daughter moved inside me. I placed one hand over my stomach. Then I looked at the number again. $940,000. I didn't know where it had gone, but I knew where it hadn't gone. Through the company's official books. I opened the tax records, and that's when the fear became personal. My name was on them. My CPA credentials, my professional approval, 5 years of financial filings. I had never knowingly falsified a single number, but I'd prepared reports based on information provided by my father's staff. If those numbers had been manipulated before they ever reached me, my name was still attached to the filings. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a family problem anymore. It could become my professional nightmare. I called my attorney, Rachel Bennett. She listened quietly while I explained everything. When I finished, she didn't speak for several seconds. Then she asked, "Emily, when did you first discover the hidden revenue?" "Yesterday." "Good," I frowned. "Good?" "Yes, write down the exact date and time. Save every file. Don't modify anything. Don't delete anything. And don't confront your family yet." "Why?" "Because right now, the most important thing isn't proving that they're guilty." She paused. "It's proving exactly when you knew." I understood immediately. My marriage was falling apart. My family was hiding something. But my professional license was sitting right in the middle of it. And suddenly, I wasn't just investigating them anymore. I was documenting my own innocence. That night, Daniel called me. He looked relaxed. Too relaxed. "How are you feeling?" "Fine, how's the baby?" "She's moving." He smiled. "That's good." Then I heard something in the background. A low mechanical hum, followed by a distant horn. I recognized it immediately, a ship. I looked at him. He didn't react. "How was the office?" I asked. "Crazy, sounds exhausting." He laughed. And I smiled. "I'm glad you're working so hard for us." Then the call ended. I sat there in silence, because now I knew. The cruise wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a business meeting. It was a lie. But I still didn't know why my husband was involved with my father's hidden accounts. That answer came from my mother. 2 days later, Margaret came to the hospital. She brought flowers. She asked about the baby. She asked whether I needed anything. Then she said, "Your father is under a lot of pressure." I looked at her. What kind of pressure? She didn't answer. Instead, she sat beside my bed. "Your father has always been afraid of losing everything." I waited. Then she told me something I'd never heard before. When my father was 13, his own father lost their family business. Creditors came to their house. They took the family truck. Neighbors watched. My father stood on the porch while his mother cried. He never forgot that day. My mother looked at me. "Your father promised himself he'd never be powerless again." For a moment I understood him. I understood where the obsession came from. But then I asked the question that mattered. "Mom." She looked at me. "Did you know?" Her eyes filled with tears. I felt my chest tighten. "What about the money?" She looked away. I already knew the answer, but I needed to hear it. "Did you know about the money?" Her voice was barely a whisper. I knew something was wrong. I swallowed. What about Daniel? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. That silence told me everything. My husband, my parents, maybe my sister, they all knew something. And I'd spent 15 years protecting their financial records because I thought I was protecting my family. I was wrong. I wasn't protecting my family. I was protecting people who were protecting themselves. Daniel came to the hospital the next afternoon. He brought flowers. He sat beside me. I know you're upset. I didn't answer. He reached for my hand. I should have told you about the cruise. Yes, he looked down. Your dad arranged it. Then why was it charged to my card? He hesitated. Cash flow. I stared at him. Cash flow. Emily, it's complicated. No, I shook my head. It isn't. He looked at me. I asked the question I'd been waiting to ask. Where did the $47,200 go? His expression changed, just slightly, but enough. Why are you looking through the accounts? Because you lied to me. That doesn't give you the right to dig through company records. I have legal access to them. He leaned back. Then he said something that ended our marriage. Emily, we're family. Your money is our money. I slowly pulled my hand away. Because in that moment, I understood something. Daniel didn't think he'd stolen from me. He thought he was entitled to me. My money, my work, my name, my trust, everything, because I was family. And apparently, in my family's world, family was just another word for ownership. The next morning, my father called. He didn't apologize. He didn't deny anything. Instead, he offered me the position I'd wanted for 15 years. CFO. I didn't answer. You've earned it, he said. I almost laughed. For 15 years I'd heard, not yet, maybe next year. When the company gets bigger, when the timing is right. And now, suddenly, the timing was perfect. What do you want from me? I asked. Clean up the books. There it was. The real reason. He didn't want to make me CFO. He wanted me to become responsible for the mess. I'll think about it, I said. You don't need to think. His voice became colder. You're my daughter. I hung up. That afternoon, Rachel sent me the contract. I opened it. CFO, salary increase, equity, authority, everything I'd dreamed about. Then I read the responsibilities. The new CFO would oversee a complete review and standardization of the company's financial records for the previous 5 years. I read the sentence twice, then I understood. They weren't giving me the company, they were giving me the liability. If I signed that document, I could become the person legally responsible for fixing records I hadn't created. My father wasn't offering me a promotion, he was handing me a grenade with the pin already pulled. I closed the laptop. My daughter moved inside me. I placed my hand over my stomach and whispered, "You are not growing up inside this." 36 weeks and 2 days into my pregnancy, my blood pressure spiked. The doctors decided they couldn't wait. That night, my daughter was born. Her name was Lily. 5 pounds, 8 ounces. Tiny, furious, perfect. When they placed her against my chest, everything else disappeared. There was no company, no money, no cruise, no husband, no father, just my daughter. And suddenly, I understood something. For years I'd believed love was something you earned by being useful. Be responsible, be dependable, fix things, protect people, keep secrets, carry everyone else's problems, and eventually, maybe they'd love you back. I looked at Lily, and I knew I would never teach her that lesson. 3 days later, my father came to the hospital. He carried the same leather folder. He placed it beside Lily's bassinet. "The offer is still open." I looked at him. "No," he frowned. "You haven't even read the final terms. I don't need to. Emily, this company is your family's legacy." I looked at him. "What company?" He went silent. I opened my laptop. The evidence was already there. The hidden revenue. The transfers, the private accounts, the tax records, my signature, everything. My father stared at the screen. Then he looked at me. "You don't understand what you're doing." "I understand exactly what I'm doing. You're going to destroy this family." I shook my head. "No," I looked at Lily. "You built this family around a lie." His face hardened. "Family protects family." I looked back at him. "Then why did you make me the person you needed to protect yourself from?" He didn't answer. I asked 3 questions. First, did harbor accounts exist before I started reviewing the books? Silence. Second, where did the $940,000 go? Nothing. Third, if I sign this agreement, who takes responsibility when the ears asks about the last 5 years? His face changed. That was my answer. My father had spent my entire life teaching me to follow the numbers. He had simply forgotten one thing. Numbers don't love anyone. They don't protect family. They don't lie for you. They don't care how much money you have. They just tell the truth. My father picked up the folder. "You're still one of us." I looked at Lily. "I know." He paused, then "Act like it." For a moment, I wanted to cry, not because I wanted to obey him, because I wanted the father I thought I had, the father who taught me how to balance my first checkbook, the father who came to my college graduation, the father who once told me I was the smartest person he'd ever known. I wanted that man back, but I knew he wasn't coming. So I opened the legal portal. Rachel had prepared the disclosure, the amended filings, the supporting documents, the timeline. Everything. My father watched me. "Emily," I placed my finger over the button. He stepped closer. "Don't do this." I looked at him. "Dad." He waited. "I spent 15 years protecting your name." My finger touched the screen. "I'm not spending the rest of my life losing mine." I clicked. The system processed the submission. Then a confirmation number appeared. That's it. No explosion. No dramatic music. No screaming. Just 10 numbers. And the truth was officially outside our family. My father stared at the screen. Then he closed his eyes. "You just destroyed everything." I looked at Lily. "No," I whispered. I stopped pretending it wasn't already broken. He left. I never saw him in that hospital room again. That same week I filed for divorce. Not because of the cruise. The cruise was just the first lie I could see. I filed because I finally understood what my marriage had become. Daniel hadn't married me for my money. At least, maybe not consciously. He had married into a system where my money, my career, my father's company, and my loyalty were all treated as one thing: family property. And I was expected to be grateful. The investigation lasted 14 months. The hidden revenue was uncovered. The company was forced to pay taxes, penalties, and interest. Several assets were sold. Carter Marine Group eventually dissolved. Daniel and I divorced. The court ordered repayment for the personal expenses that had been improperly charged. My professional conduct was reviewed too. That part was terrifying. But because I documented exactly when I discovered the hidden records, preserved the original files, and reported the issue instead of helping conceal it, I was able to protect my license. The hardest part wasn't losing the company. It wasn't losing the marriage. It was realizing how long I'd been asking people to love me for what I could do for them. My mother still sends Lily birthday cards. Sometimes she writes letters. I read them. I don't always respond. My sister moved away. We haven't spoken in more than a year. And my father? He tells people I destroyed his life's work. Maybe that's the story he needs. But records have a strange quality. They don't care what story you prefer. They remember what happened. 2 years later, I opened my own forensic accounting firm. It wasn't impressive. 1 office, 1 assistant, 1 desk, 1 glass door. And my name printed across it: Emily Carter, CPA, The first morning I stood outside that door, Lily was holding my hand. She was 3 years old. She looked at the sign, then looked at me. "Mommy," she said, "that's your name." I smiled. "Yes, your office." I squeezed her hand. "Yes," she smiled. And we walked inside. For 15 years, I thought my value came from being useful. I thought if I worked hard enough, if I fixed enough problems, if I protected enough secrets, if I kept everyone else comfortable, someone would eventually decide I deserved a place at the table. I was wrong. You don't earn love by becoming indispensable. And family isn't supposed to be a debt you spend your entire life paying. I thought I was investigating a $3,750 cruise charge. I thought I was trying to understand why my husband had lied to me. Instead, I found $940,000. I found hidden accounts. I found false records. I found my own signature attached to a story I had never agreed to tell. But the biggest thing I found wasn't money. It was myself, my name, my voice, my boundaries, and the life I wanted my daughter to inherit. Because one day, Lily will grow up. She'll have her own career, her own relationships, her own mistakes. And I never want her to believe that being loved means being useful. I never want her to think she has to pay for a place at someone's table. I never want her to confuse loyalty with silence. Sometimes the smallest transaction reveals the biggest truth. Sometimes a $3,750 charge isn't really about a cruise. Sometimes it's the first crack in a wall built around years of lies. And sometimes, the most important thing you can recover isn't money. It's your own name. That was the day I stopped being the person my family depended on to hide the numbers, and finally became the person willing to tell the truth. Even when the truth cost me everything. And sometimes, one word is enough to tell the whole story. Thank you for listening. If this story reminded you of a moment when someone tried to rewrite your life, tell me about it in the comments. And if your husband has ever cheated you and you had to fight quietly for something that was already yours, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in the next story.